We've got some quick headlines for you. First up, a United Airlines passenger goes berserk on a flight attendant, all because he was mad about his chair.
I'm calm as can be. I'm yelling at you. I'm not yelling. You want to hear me? Do you know how cool it would be to have the airplane turned around with me? You're going to do that? You do that. I'm being so impolite, aren't I, fat?
Whoa. The flight was heading to San Francisco from Sydney, Australia. Long flight, but was diverted to New Zealand, where the man was arrested for complaining in the outburst over his seat. And first, France told its workers they didn't have to answer email at home. Well, now in Finland, people don't even have to go to get paid. They're lending them about a month. And you know what? The best part? No questions asked.
There you go. $600.
They're finished.
Wow. Well, it's a story about faith, family, and football.
I'm concerned about where my players spend eternity.
Bobby was a bigger-than-life figure to me.
He expected me to be the best.
The Seminoles are a win away from winning the school's first national championship.
Come on, man. We can still win this thing.
The life and legendary former college football coach Bobby Bowden now being presented in a new documentary called The Bowden Dynasty. It premieres this Sunday on the eve of the college football national championship.
And joining us right now, the legend, Bobby Bowden. Good morning to you, Coach.
Legend in the flesh.
Good to be here. So that soundbite in there, you were worried about where your players were going to spend eternity.
Well, you know, I found out in my latter years of coaching, I hate to say this, most of my boys did not have a father at home. They were raised by mothers or sisters or aunts or, you know, but there was a male figure missing. And so I felt like we as coaches had to play that role in their life.
You were their father figure.
That's exactly, really, because we might be the closest thing they ever have to a father. You know what? Now, I was raised with a father. As long as I had him, I was the bravest kid in the neighborhood because I knew dadgum he's going to take care of me, you know? Then I see these kids coming up that never had that. Never had a male figure in the home. So I felt like our coaching staff had to fill that role, you know what? Because, again, just as I said, we might be the closest thing to a dad they ever have.
Did you see them become better players as a result of that? Did you see the difference when they ultimately felt like they had a purpose, they had value?
Oh, no doubt about it. You know, it's kind of like being loose. You know, if you're going to do something in a contest and some guy goes in there tight, he ain't going to win. You know, if a guy that can kind of hang loose is going to do it. And I think once a guy gets that feeling that he is saved, or however you'd like to say it, I think he performs a lot better.
Coach, you know, faith is such a big part about what you talk about. And even in that clip, there was a clip of you praying with your team. We see, it feels like almost weekly now, instances of coaches being condemned or told they can't pray with their players, that that's not suitable. I mean, what do you say to that? You know,
that's probably about 2,500 years old. That Christians are going to be persecuted. There's too many people that don't like them. You know what I'm saying? And we see that happening all over the world, you know. So if you're going to be a Christian or if you're going to announce God, you're going to turn a lot of people off, you know what? But so what?
Sure.
I don't mind getting turned off for that.
What about, and this has turned off a number of people who watch the NFL.
Yeah.
When Colin Kaepernick started taking a knee
Yeah.
and refused to stand for the national anthem,
Yeah.
if he was on your team, what would happen?
I would call him in and plead with him, son, I don't think it's wise to do that when the Star-Spangled Banner is being played. There's too much history of that Star-Spangled Banner. There's too much blood that's been given for that Star.
But I think, Bobby, people have made that argument to him, and he continues to take the knee.
Well, I couldn't do anything about that. Now, you've got a choice. Let's kick him off the team. I'm not sure how well that would work. You know what? Well, let's keep him on the team. I guess they just have to let it go. I was never faced with that, but I would talk to my team about the value of the flag and of our nation, you know, and try to get them not to do that.
Was there
get another town to do it? It's a nice cause.
Yeah.
Was there ever any pushback to that?
Pardon?
Was there ever any pushback when you would talk about values, when you talked about the American flag, when you talked about your faith? Was there ever any pushback to that?
That's a very good question. When I recruited boys, I would talk to their parents. I'd say, now, when your son comes to Florida State, I'm going to take him to church. I'm going to take them to a white church. Then the next Sunday, I'm going to take them to a black church. Why? 'Cause I just want them to see that they're welcome no matter what their race in our churches here at Florida. Because and you know what? You take mamas and daddies, even if they're bad, they want the kids to be good. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so when I tell them that, they loved it.
I'm sure they did. The kids that you recruited later on, has it changed how coaching, interacting with younger people, millennials, has that changed at all, how you interact with them?
Oh, it's changed. Has it changed? You know, I started coaching in 1953. I coached 57 years. Now, in 1953, that was after the war. Tell the kid to do it. That wall, hard as you can. Okay, coach. Nowadays you have to sell him.
Yeah.
Son, if you'll do this, you can become a great player.
Sure.
You can be a professional football player. You know, if you'll do this, you got to sell him.
Yeah.
So true.
So it's a book, and it's also a documentary. The Bowden Dynasty premieres this Sunday. The book is available everywhere.
Yeah.
Bobby, thank you very much.
Gosh, good to see you again. Good to see you all.
Good to have you here.
Take care of
Happy
yourself.
New
Yeah.
Year.
Thank you.
Hey, good to see you, babe.
Love it.
Y'all take care.
All right.
All right, for years, Democrats have whined that President Obama couldn't get anything done because of Republicans. But now, are they doing the same thing with the Trump administration? Karl Rove, he's on deck next.
There he is. And President-elect Donald Trump made this a household phrase.
You're fired.
Okay.
Go.
Well, there's a new boardroom boss in town and a new catchphrase. Our first look at Arnold on The Apprentice. That's next.
She's so fine tonight. And as long as I got my suit and tie, I'ma leave it all on the floor tonight. And you got fixed up too nice. Let me show you a few things. All dressed up in black.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick.
Well, the president-elect has been busy tweeting this morning. He sent out 3. Here are 2 of them.
Yeah. Here, we'll read these for you. People must remember that Obamacare just doesn't work and is not affordable. 116% increase in Arizona. Bill Clinton called it crazy. That was one of them.
That's one. And right after it, he tweeted again on Obamacare. He said the Democrat governor of Minnesota, referring to Mark Dayton, said that the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is no longer affordable and it's lousy health care.
Karl Rove would probably agree that it's not a great program. He joins us from down in Austin, Texas, I believe. Good morning to you, Karl.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I enjoyed the back and forth with Marie Osmond, and I just want to say, as somebody who went to high school in Utah and 2 years of college, that I'm not aware that I dated any member of either the Huntsman or the Osmond family.
You may
In
just
fact,
not
I'm pretty
remember,
confident
Karl.
I didn't.
Well, according to her, you're the only one.
There were so few dates during that period of time that I think I'd recall it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, want your thoughts on this. Now you have Nancy Pelosi pleading with Republicans, saying, give Obamacare a second look. Do we have that sound?
Oh, we have a tweet.
But we do have a tweet that Nancy Pelosi has sent out, and sent out yesterday, I believe, on Obamacare. She said, people must remember that Obamacare just doesn't. Well, that's not the tweet. That's the Donald Trump tweet. She said that everyone's got better health care and more opportunities because of Obamacare, and sort of disregard what's actually happened. What do you make about the onslaught on this Obamacare stuff?
Yeah, look, Nancy Pelosi was the person who famously told us we got to pass the bill in order to know what's in the bill. We now know what's in the bill. Premiums have skyrocketed when they told us they'd go down $2,500 per person. Millions of people lost their coverage when we were told if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. Millions more lost access to their doctor, and we were told if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. We were told that it would generate this much more coverage, and it's generated this much more coverage, and they said it would cost this much, and it costs this much. So, look, this thing needs to be repealed and replaced. My sense is they'll partially repeal most of it quickly, and they will replace much of it this year, but it's going to be a long-term project to undo the damage that the Affordable Care Act has done to the American health care system.
Well, and it has done a lot of damage. My daughter has Obamacare, and I don't think she wound up spending or because the deductible was so high, she had to pay for
deductibles are so high.
Yeah, she didn't get reimbursed a dime last year from Obamacare. So, Karl, going forward, we had Frank Luntz on a couple hours ago, and he did a poll, and a plurality of people said that they didn't mind how long it took as long as it got fixed right.
I think that's right. People understand this is a big, complex issue. They want it done, and they want it done right. But the Congress can do that. They can send the president legislation that begins the process of repealing the most egregious parts of it this year, and puts us on a path to a new system. The Secretary of HHS, Health and Human Services, can do a lot on his own to undo a lot of the bad things in the Affordable Care Act. There's a 400-page description of what has to be in each and every policy, insurance policy under the Affordable Care Act. He has the statutory power given to him by Congress to take that and rewrite it, and he can turn it down to 2 pages, allowing more options, more alternatives, fewer mandates and requirements, and that could be the first thing that could be done to really drop down on the cost of rising health insurance by changing the so-called essential benefits.
And the reason we're talking so much about Obamacare and Democrats are doubling down on this is because it all goes back to President Obama's legacy. He's hoping that this continues on for his own sake. You know all about legacy, Carl. How will we be talking about President Obama years from now, about his legacy? What will that be?
Yeah, look, that's going to be left up to the historians. But I do think the Affordable Care Act is his major domestic initiative, and it's a disaster. The stimulus bill did not meet the growth and job creation numbers that the administration used to sell it in 2009. I think on the domestic side, he's going to be having had a few minor accomplishments and major failures. And on the foreign policy side, I got to tell you, this president, the new president, and the president who succeeds him, and the president who succeeds him, in all likelihood, are going to be dealing with the debris of the failed decisions of this administration, whether it is in the Middle East or dealings with Russia, or a failure to make the full pivot to Asia and back it up with muscle. I mean, America has abrogated a lot of its leadership position in the world.
Carl, today the 115th Congress is sworn in. They're going to get to work with a flurry of activity, but Democrats have announced up to 8 cabinet picks that they're going to oppose in what looks like an unprecedented attempt to block potential nominees. Have you seen anything of this size and scope? You think they can try to drag it out all the way till March, as they've talked about, in opposing some of these picks? How do you see this unfolding?
Yeah. Look, they can, if they want to be obstructionists, they can use the Senate rules to slow this process up some and delay President Trump being able to put his administration in power and having people in the agencies running these things and moving forward with his policies. They can do that. Let's look back, though, at what Republicans did in a similar position in 2009. In 2009, the Senate of the United States approved 8 of President Obama's nominees on the first 2 days that he was president, the 20th and the 21st. They approved one more on the 23rd. Most of these were, incidentally, by voice votes: agriculture, interior, energy, VA, HUD, Homeland Security, education, transportation. All of those done were without even a roll call vote. By the 26th, they did one more. February 2nd, they did the Attorney General, who had a controversial set of hearings. They approved him. The 24th, they approved the Labor Secretary, even though there had been a major issue involving her husband's unpaid taxes. And then the last 2 members of the cabinet are March 24th, and that's because the Commerce Secretary was nominated on the 23rd of February. They went through 2 different people before that withdrew themselves, and then the last member of the cabinet is April 28th. That's the HHS Secretary, who is on the 3rd of February. Tom Daschle withdraws because it turns out he hasn't paid his taxes and had some issues about lobbying, and they nominated Sebelius on the 2nd of March, and she's approved 5 weeks later. So most of the cabinet is approved, pretty quickly without much controversy.
Well, let's hope it's that way this time as well. Carl Rove down in Austin, Texas, with his erasable whiteboard. You must have stock in Staples or something.
I love it.
I see a lot.
No, darn it! I didn't buy stock in the whiteboard company before I started using them. It's the biggest financial mistake of my life.
Carl, I'm going to text my mom, see if you guys ever went on a date back then. She might tell me something different.
No.
You never know.
We'll report back.
Your mom was too cool for me. I was the complete nerd. No chance in heck.
I love it. Carl, good to see you this
Carl.
morning. Have a good day. All right, let's go over to Heather now for some headlines this morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. An important story to bring you. This one coming out of Colorado this morning, and that is where police need your help. There is a massive search underway at this hour for a young Colorado boy who wandered away from his home on New Year's Eve, we are told. His mother, heartbroken, pleading for his return.
I'm worried with how cold it is that something might really bad happen to him. Please help me find him.
Her little boy is just 6 years old. His name is David Puckett. We're told he was wearing just a thin coat. He disappeared in Aurora, Colorado, just south of Denver, in below freezing temperatures. Police say the boy has a slight learning disability, and they claim he's wandered off at least 2 times. If you have seen that little boy, please call police. And this video is hard to watch, especially if you're a parent. There's a 2-year-old boy who's pinned underneath that dresser, and his twin brother comes to the rescue. We want to let you know that both children are okay, but you can see that 2-year-old as he struggles to move the dresser off of his brother. Their parents were downstairs at the time. They discovered this footage on their surveillance video system after they saw the dresser tipped over. They posted this video online as a warning for other parents. We're trying to figure out which company sells that dresser, but a good cautionary tale to parents to secure those to the wall. President-elect Donald Trump made this a household phrase. You all know it?
You're fired. Okay. Go.
Well, now there's a new boss bringing a new catchphrase to the boardroom, and here it is.
Lily?
Perfect. Schwarzenegger the Terminator adding his own style to the new season of Celebrity Apprentice. And by the way, when they get terminated, they go to a chopper. A helicopter picks them up.
Chopper.
Terrific. Perfect.
I like it.
Those are your
I think
headlines.
it's going to fit.
No, it's going to work on that show.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Tim, thanks.
Whatever happened to the guy who used to do the show?
We should check in on that.
Yeah, right. All right, straight ahead on this Tuesday, Hillary Clinton may have lost the election, but President Obama says he could have beaten Trump.
If I had run again and have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
Well, Brian Dean Wright, a lifelong Democrat, doesn't buy it. Why he says it's time for the country and the party to move on, and he joins us next.
Come on in.
Well, he campaigned hard for Hillary Clinton, and she lost, but President Obama insisting he could have beaten President-elect Donald Trump.
I am confident in this vision because I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
Well, now one frustrated Democrat says he doesn't buy that, and it's the topic of Brian Dean Wright's new opinion piece on FoxNews.com. He joins us live here on the East Coast from the West Coast. Brian, good morning to you.
Very good day to you.
Okay, so, you know, there you got Barack Obama saying, you know, I could have won third term.
Yeah. Well, here's a couple of things. One, could he have won? And then secondly, would Democrats would have wanted him to win a second time? You know, Hillary Clinton wrapped herself around President Obama's legacy. You know, she promoted herself really as the next third term. And the American people considered that, and they rejected it, unfortunately for my party. But the American people spoke, and in fact, she did get a majority of voters. She in fact won the popular vote, but that's not how our democracy works. So I don't understand the president's logic here, and I don't think in a changed election he would have won.
And now you look at what has happened. You know, they've had some do-overs. Okay, let's pin our hopes on the recount.
Sure.
Discrediting him. Okay, he stole it. Okay, now the Russians as well. What do you make of the fact that, and we've got a big exclusive interview tonight, Julian Assange sits down in person with Sean Hannity, who says the Russians did not give us the WikiLeaks documents.
Well, you know,
but that's what your party's pushing,
sure,
to delegitimize President Donald Trump.
Well, I'll tell you, I do believe that the Russians had a very clear hand in this, and I think as a former agency officer, CIA officer, you know, I trust my former colleagues in their assessment. But I do believe that at the end of the day, the American people spoke, despite or even because of all these terrible things that in fact did happen that the Russians pushed. They still, the American people spoke. And it was their will. President Obama, in fact, said the day after the election that the will of the American people had been reflected in the vote. And I think that that was true then and is true now.
And, of course, then you've got Donald Trump in the last couple of days coming out and saying, you know, he doesn't trust computers and, you know, they're all hackable. Yeah. You should know, you were at the CIA.
That's right. Yeah, well, in fact, one of the great jokes that we had at the agency, we would ask each other, what's the most secure computer that you can find? And the answer is a broken one. So it's true. I think the president is right to say that our system is potentially hackable.
All right, Brian Dean, read his op-ed over at FoxNews.com. Brian, thank you very much.
Sir.
All right. Meanwhile, ISIS uses them as weapons of mass destruction, mass murder, I should say. But now one government is making kill switches to stop truck massacres like the ones in Berlin and France. But is it a good idea? We're going to debate that next. But first, let's check in with Martha. She's back at work this morning.
Hello there.
Hey.
Happy New Year, everybody. Hi, Steve. Good to see you this morning. Happy 2017 at home. Inaugural now 17 days away. We'll talk about the president, what he's going to about. Everybody's watching that closely. Also, Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy to break some news on regulations and what they will roll back first, and the battle over Obamacare. All very big, very important topics for 2017. Bill and I will see you at the top of the hour.
Or otherwise, you hear about gun control. But what about truck control? The British government now trying to prevent truck attacks like the ones in France and in Germany by proposing a vehicle kill switch. It would be able to stop any wheel. Chicago Police Sergeant Peter Kokonis and former State Department Senior Advisor Morgan Wright. Morgan, I'm going to start with you. The idea of a kill switch to prevent someone hell-bent on killing people with a vehicle. Is that practical?
Is it practical? That's the toughest part to figure out right now, Pete. It's going to be the policy is the big part. Is when you're going to deploy it, how you're going to deploy it. Building the technology is not an issue, but deploying it and what are the rules and the rules of engagement. You know from your time in theater, the rules of engagement are extremely important. Who triggers it? When do they trigger it? And the biggest thing, Pete, can they get to the point where they can trigger it fast enough to stop that vehicle from attacking?
So you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea.
Really? Pete, so the practicality of kill switches, we hear, first of all, what's your take?
I think it's a great idea, but it's impractical and cost prohibitive right now.
So you wouldn't be for it? I mean, a city like Chicago, you're from Chicago, you've policed there. How do you deal with what vehicles, when it's triggered? And is it really just a good idea? Do we want the government having control over our vehicles?
Well, no, no, the government's getting control of everything, so you don't want to give them control over that. But the most important thing, if you're in a chase or you're chasing this truck, chases take 1 to 3 minutes, and they're usually end in an accident, the people bailing out of the car, or they're boxed in somewhere. So who is going to activate that charge? And how are they going to activate it? If it's a matter of doing it through the communications center, you have to have a license plate. You have to have the information on the truck. You're chasing somebody, you've got to worry about keeping your eye on them, and your partner's got to relay the street addresses. So how are you going to turn that car off?
Sure. Morgan, I have to ask, is this just treating the symptom again? Rather than saying we're confronting a radical Islamist enemy seeking to kill us, we're trying to say turn off the vehicles.
Look, hey, Pete, no, I'm definitely with you. I've been talking about it's about the narrative. It's about actually going after Islam and the elements of Islam that attack the United States. But on the other hand, we also have to go after the tools they use. And this is one of the tools they use. And look, right now, trucks are heavily regulated, Pete. They're regulated by all the corporation commissions. Drivers are regulated, everything. This is not something new. The question is, if this starts becoming a tool, then what is our response? To what if they steal the truck? We can't always depend upon screening backgrounds of drivers, right? So if they steal the truck, we want to shut it down.
Peter, you're a cop in Chicago where the murder rate is off the charts, and they're always talking about the tools, the guns, getting rid of the guns, yet the violence continues. Kill switches in vehicles, isn't that just like saying gun control is what will solve everything?
And gun control, we have the strictest gun laws in the country in Chicago, and that didn't work.
So if you had the strictest truck laws, would that stop a suicide bomber?
If the suicide bomber grabs a truck driver, kills him, they pull the truck into a place, they throw the bomb in the truck, they turn around, drive the truck into in any neighborhood and blow it up. By the time you realize that that truck is gone, the truck's already blown up.
Sure.
So I don't see how you're going to effectively police that trucking industry, and you can't just put kill devices on every truck. Companies
Yeah.
For $100 or less, you can put a kill switch in your own car so it doesn't get stolen. How many people do that?
Yeah, but then when the government tries to do it, it becomes a massive, massive overreach. Peter Morgan, we got to...
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Great group. Tomorrow, Pete, we're sending you where?
To a diner in Long Island.
Can you say it right?
To
Yes.
talk to Long Island.
Long Island.
So I'm told.